I've just built this privacy fence, and I wish that somebody had told me all of this information. So I'm gonna tell you. Hey there, welcome back to Spirit of a Handyman. There's several videos that show you how to do a split rail fence, but none of them go into all the details of what you need to do. So I'm gonna create that for you and give you some pointers on what I wish I had done, and maybe that'll help you out.
He's got the spirit of a handyman.
One thing that you're going to need is an end rail. It's just a clean piece on that side with the opening on this side here. You want to make sure that all your posts are totally straight up and down. So I got a 4-foot level because that helps with two things. One, this fence, this like netting is 4 feet tall. So just by holding up this level, I was able to tell if my posts were going to be tall enough. That was kind of a helpful trick. Another thing, I ended up doing cement around the bottom because it's just really hard to like tamp down the dirt and push it down and get it all compact. You pour some Quikrete around the bottom, throw some water in there, and this post is ready to rock and roll in like 15-20 minutes. Super helpful. I really wish somebody had warned me before you start to do... I started this fence project on a rainy weekend because it was super easy to get the fence out. True, it is super easy to get a fence out. However, when the bit goes down to dig out your new hole, like the top couple inches might be dry, but if the water table, you know, like down 12 inches down, all of a sudden there's a lot of water down there, and so the bit just binds and gets all clay-like, and it's not able to pull up. So if you're going to build a split rail fence, totally start your split rail fence project after it hasn't rained for at least like a week. That way you get some nice dry dirt and you can throw it back around there. Ideally, you'll measure out all your posts at exactly the right distance, and you'll drill your holes in exactly the right places. These particular boards are 10 feet and 6 inches long, so that the 3 inches here, 3 inches over here account for the two little grooves. So 10 feet in between holes, then the hole width. So anyhow, I measured 10 feet, 10 feet, 10 feet, and by the time I got down to here, this post is leaning this way just a little bit by like an inch. Not a big deal, but then that means that this post I was trying to accommodate for that. Anyhow, this post, this one is true, this one's straight up and down, but this one's kind of leaning the other way. Anyhow, if you need to do, if your posts, if one ends up just having to be a little bit crooked for whatever reason, try to split the difference so that it's less noticeable to the eye. Because these posts are so close together, it's kind of easy to tell that one of them is slanted. So really wish I had redone that. In an instance where you need to go just a little bit longer than where your posts are, I recommend splitting the difference. And there's a pretty easy way to do that. You just cut the board at the right length, and then you can create a new notch. So I'll show you how I did that, but that was pretty easy to do. Another difficulty is stretching this wire fence tight and not having any waves or wobbles, which that is tremendously difficult because the pitch of the ground is not totally straight. It's moving uphill, which means that this fence needs to kind of curve, which means there's going to be a little excess on top. So the way that I did that is I just put in extra staples when I needed to. So that's a much easier job to have two people do. You have one person pull the fence tight while the other one sinks the nail in. When I was doing it by myself, without the second person, I just kind of set the staple in a little bit further to the left and then kind of drive it this way, which creates a little bit of a bend here, but it pulls that wire a little bit tighter, and so that's pretty helpful. This particular stuff is real bad. I mean, there's not much left to it at all. So this stuff needs to be replaced for sure. Some of these posts are barely in here anymore. This one is rotted away to the point where it's not even hanging in. It's only being held up by the staples. So we got a lot of rain over the weekend. So to remove these posts, they weren't cemented in. It's just a matter of wiggling them back and forth. You can see they were in there about 2 feet. Just pull them out, throw them in the truck. All right, so there's been some debate as to whether you should put gravel at the bottom of your hole to keep your post off of the water. Here, I watched this great video from another YouTuber, and I think this really well illustrates the point. There's standing water down there, so if you go down a couple feet, you're actually in the water table. So the bottom part of this post, you can see all this water here, all the way up to about here. So the entire bottom part of this post is sitting underwater. So it really doesn't matter if you put some gravel down here, because water is going to be totally surrounding this thing. So unless you encase the whole thing in cement, it really isn't going to matter. So here I've got a corner post and no holes on this side. They missed that in my order when I checked out. So they've got it on order, and maybe I'll wait for it, but I really would like to start putting this thing up today. So the current plan is to use this 1-inch paddle and try to create the hole that I need over here, and see if that'll work. Because this rough cut wood doesn't have a true straight line, in order to tell if it's level, I find just kind of like plant it beside and then find level there, and then I just kind of eyeball like the average distance between the straight edge and the wood and say, all right, is that true, is that straight? And it looks like it's tighter up here than down there, so we want to push the top in that way. Here we are, day 3 on the fence project, and here's what I learned. This is not a crazy slopey yard, right? It's not that much of a hill, but man, that hole digging machine, even though I got the tow behind, which is supposed to be like a one-man show, that thing was crazy hard to move. It kept wanting to coast downhill, and so it was super hard to use. And because we had a lot of rain over the weekend, it would go down about 16 inches, and then it would get into that water table, and it would just bind, and the machine wouldn't go down any further. So all of these holes need to be hand dug out the last couple of inches in order to get our posts down all the way. Totally a waste of $141 in my opinion. So we're basically starting over today by doing it by hand. We can get all these holes dug out and then set our posts, and then because the soil is clumpy, it's not going to go back around. I was hoping to just do dirt around the edges and then tamp it down, but because it's kind of a clay, then I bought a bunch of bags of quick setting Quikrete. So we'll pour that around the base of each of these posts, and that will give it a little bit more of a hold. So that's the plan for today. We'll see how long it takes. All right, some of these holes have a rock at the bottom, and it's just not worth trying to get under there. So I made a line. Here's where ground level should be. Set the post in the hole and measured the difference, and it was 3 inches. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just cut 3 inches off the bottom of this post so the post still looks the right height. And I'm gonna put some Quikrete on the bottom, and that'll help hold it tight. Here we have a standard board, which is 10 feet long, so 2 posts, 10 feet. Here we have a very unstandard width, though, because this length from that post to that post was 11 feet long. I didn't want to do a 10-foot section and then have a foot gap. So I decided to split the difference and cut down 2 of these rails. So let me show you just kind of how I did it. These things come with these tongues already pre-cut into them. You can see, here's a good example. Here's a tongue pre-cut into it. So basically, I'm taking the measurement from the inside of these posts, which in this case, I happen to know is 54. So in this case, we're looking at 54 inches. I'm taking that measurement not from the end of the board, but from that tongue. So my tape is caught on the tongue right there. Coming out here, oh, I actually had 3 measurements, 54. So I'm taking that measurement from the inside of there to the inside here, which in this case, 55.5. Take that same tape. I'm not going from the end of the board because that part's gonna go inside. Instead, I'm hooking it on that tongue. And I've got my mark at 55.5. Then I also have a secondary mark at 56 3/4. So I'm gonna cut the entire board here at the first mark. The 56 3/4, that's where I'm gonna cut the entire board. Then I'll come with a chainsaw and just chisel out a little tongue right there. And that will get this piece to fit in. This stuff tears super easily. So there we go. Day 4 on the split rail fence project. We used Quikrete to set these posts. This is amazing. Check this out. Shaking it. Here. Doesn't move. That one's also been Quikreted. I think that one's been Quikreted. This one I did not use Quikrete. Anyhow, definitely highly recommend the Quikrete. This will settle and become more sturdy in here with time. But in the meantime, I need to go around and tamp this some more. So definitely using Quikrete for the rest of these posts. So if we did everything right, then this is 48 inches. Top of it should nail in up here. And the bottom of it, touch the ground. Sealed for dogs or very large insects, or perhaps very small giraffes. Do it.
He's got the spirit of the handy kids. Kids, the handy kids. That's good, Micaiah.
So that's everything that I think you need to know in order to successfully build a split rail fence. Hopefully this is really helpful. I'm not saying this is like the best design ever, but those are at least the things I learned while doing it. So if I was going to do it a second time, I'd be able to do it much quicker and better because of the things I learned with this video. So comment down below on other tips and tricks that you have discovered while doing a split rail fence, or tell us about your success stories. We would love to hear those. That'd be awesome. In the meantime, stay tuned for more updates from
Spirit of the Handyman. And I sell.
Great help, kiddos.